Welcome back to the Agent Workforce podcast. This is episode number 12. My name is Kristiina Åberg and I lead marketing at Digital Workforce. With me, my amazing co-host, AI solution architect, Niko Lehtonen. How are you, Niko? How is it going?
Yeah, it's going well. It's going well. The sun's come out finally, and hopefully the summer's coming to here in Finland as well. What about you?
Yeah, all good as well. Thank you. We had another short week last week, and yeah, now it's all full weeks from here on. So great to be back. In today's episode, we'll talk about Anthropic's latest updates and the Mary Meeker report, and also fresh from the oven this morning, some key takeaways from our webinar where Niko was presenting with Rami. All right, let's kick off. Anthropic launched Claude 4 models on the 22nd of May, introducing the next generation of Claude models, Claude Opus 4 and Claude Sonnet 4, saying that they set new standards for coding, advanced reasoning, and AI agents. And they claim Claude Opus 4 is the world's best coding model with sustained performance on complex, long-running tasks and agent workflows. And Claude Sonnet 4 is a significant upgrade to Sonnet 3.7, delivering superior coding reasoning while responding more precisely to instructions. And I have to say that Claude has been and is now even better at writing. It's extremely good. I've used that a lot for writing related tasks. I also use it for inspiration to create slides, and I find it very nice to use. Actually, the user interface and the style within the tool is great. I also heard a colleague commenting that the coding capabilities are just unbelievable. And it's been said that there's like extended autonomy as well, that Claude can debug code for 7 hours straight. So that's quite mind-blowing. Any first comments you've had or heard, Niko?
Well, I guess we're going to some of the news after this as well, but yeah, I've not tried it yet, but I had to check. It is available on Cursor as well now, so that's probably going to be my gateway into Claude 4 after we finish this episode.
Yeah. So in addition to these amazing capabilities, there's been a lot of talk on the internet about like Anthropic's responsible scaling policies and this so-called snitching, what happened with Claude models. I'm going to share my screen to share you guys something, just a second. Anthropic responsible scaling policy is so-called the risk governance framework they use to mitigate potential catastrophic risks from frontier AI systems. So they announced an updated responsible scaling policy last year, but originally this policy was released in September 2023. And as said, it underwent a significant update last year in October, and it focuses on catastrophic risks, those where an AI model directly causes large-scale devastation. So you can scale or go and check this on the website. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so you can see. And in this page, they break this down into 4 levels, AI safety levels, what they call ASLs. And ASL-1 is for smaller models, ASL-2 is for present large models, that was previously. ASL-3 is significantly higher risk, and ASL-4 is like speculative at that point, but it defines what they mean by these risks. And what is significant here is that with the new updates, they have activated this level 3. Let me put that back on so you guys can go and read this through. But what it means that this activated AI safety level 3 deployment and security standards described here, and now with the launch of their new updated Claude Opus 4, they've come into a new level. And as this works as a progressive framework for and future ASL-5 will be planned for like future more capable systems that could pose like really existential risks for now. But as they are operating now at ASL-3 level with their most advanced models, and this is quite significant. And what actually happened with their Claude 4 introduction and what they found out, I'm going to show that here a news article that you guys can go and read as well. This is Wired. a story called Why Anthropic's New AI Model Sometimes Tries to Snitch. And what happened is that during red team safety tests that they do with the teams, of course, before releasing new models and after the models have been released as well, is that they discovered unexpected form of whistleblowing. And the model, it happens if the model is placed in a scenario of a clear large-scale wrongdoing, and it's given a system-level instruction such as take initiative, and it's granted command line or email access. So it tries to alert regulators, journalists, or even lock users out of the system. And one test prompt led Claude AI to draft an email to the FDA exposing a planned falsification of clinical trial data. And why this all matters is that Anthropic didn't program this behavior, so it kind of surfaced spontaneously, and the company classifies it as misalignment. So, and evidence that powerful models can make high stakes ethical judgments that their designers did not intend. And this is, of course, not only related to Claude 4, but we know of similar behavior in other models. And this came out in an ex-post by the researcher Sam Bowman, and then he recently or took off that ex-post. But of course, the bigger picture is they are saying that there's shouldn't be worries in companies, but of course, many companies are a bit worried what comes when you use these tools, and can this occur if you use and build agents and things like that. So any initial thoughts, Niko, of the snitching features of the current LLMs?
Yeah, I mean, I started looking into this and I found this Snitch Bench, which is a researcher who's published this sort of app on Vercel where he's compared. He provides a training set and results for a bunch of different models and how likely they are to snitch to the authorities or to the media. And well, unsurprisingly, Claude 4 is far and away at the top, but there are other models as there that in there as well that do try to do that, and it's not just Anthropic's models. And so that's quite interesting. If you want to take a look, just go search for Snitch Bench and maybe type in Anthropic or something, and you'll find it. Especially if you want to test it out for yourself, no need to trust the results you see there. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'm just wondering what happens with my cursor projects if Claude thinks I'm trying to do something that I don't at least intend to be doing. Am I going to get locked out of using the model on cursor? What's going to happen? So that brings me to the other thing, which is basically, or any solution where there's a layer between the LLM and the user. If the LLM locks you out, then you can't use the solution. And if this happens unintentionally, one day I wanted some model to work on a topic, and instead of say let's run it, I said let's execute it, and I was faced with a message saying that this goes against our policies because the word execute was deemed as a negative word instead of actually actioning on something. So if this kind of model decides that kind of a word is harmful instead of a regular development type of term, then am I going to get alerted to the authorities for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I don't hear any sirens yet, so I'm all good for now.
Yeah, and Anthropic researchers, of course, like stress that this is not behavior that will happen like with corporate users and agentic and all that. So there are, of course, way to mitigate this. And credits to, I mean, Anthropic, they are quite open about this, and it's not that not all the other labs would have the same. So they have just decided to take quite responsible and open way to like communicate these things. And I believe this is the board that you were referring to.
Exactly, yes.
So it's Snitch script visualized virtual app. So practically, for those listeners who can't see what we're sharing on the
And
screen.
if you scroll further down, there's a
Yep.
rated list of the models that were tested here. You can of course do this with other models as well and so on, but these are the ones that were tested.
Yeah. Yes. So that for Anthropic updates. Then let's quickly talk about Mary Meeker's report, 340 pages long. That's a massive long report, but it doesn't take that long to go it through. There are a lot of graphs and images and of course text as well. But Meeker is the founder and general partner of at VC firm Bond, and was once known as the queen of the internet for her previous annual internet trends reports, highly weighted for at times. And now she hasn't done any reports in the past 6 years, but now she's back again with this report what comes to artificial intelligence, and some key takeaways from the report. I recommend you go and check this yourself. So it's bondcap.com/reports T/TAI and trends artificial intelligence. And I will just open one page from here where we can see actually the contents of the report. So it's structured around 8 core observations. Firstly, we're seeing unprecedented pace of change. That's no news to us, but this user adoption is occurring at unprecedented speed, really faster than the internet's initial rollouts. And for instance, ChatGPT achieved 90% user penetration outside of the US in just 3 years, compared to the internet taking the same like milestone 23 years to reach. So it's quite explosive, the speed of change here, and so it's explosive growth in usage and investment as well, which is the second category. And AI adoption investments are growing explosively, with over 63% of professional developers using AI in 2024, and major US tech companies significantly increasing their capex for AI infrastructure. That of course we know as well. Then third topic is evolving cost dynamics. While the cost of training AI models remains extraordinarily high and are rising fast, the cost of inference, running the models, is arching down and not up. And like hardware improvements like NVIDIA's GPUs are just consuming way less energy per token over 10 years time frame, and that tendency is expected to continue. So interesting setup there what comes to like costs going down. And then fourth main category is monetization challenges, and there's like rising competition, as we know, of course, a lot of emerging companies and models coming from China. And then the big question about open source, what's going to happen with open source versus these commercial models going forward. And topic 5 is AI's integration into the physical world. And I see this as a massive change coming quite soon. So where AI is being rapidly data-drivenly integrated into physical industry, something we called embodied AI, some really interesting data points in this study with regards to physical world and AI. And then there's 6, this AI-powered internet user growth. And the next wave of global internet users is expected to be AI-powered, likely coming online through AI-native experiences, potentially bypassing traditional app ecosystem. So we'll see what will happen to that ecosystem. And then the 7th topic is around transformation impact on work. And AI's impact on work is deemed real and rapid. And we are definitely seeing the first indications of this around us, what comes to like entry-level positions, rapidly changing roles and requirements in the workplace, what comes to skills around AI. And every job will be impacted is what they say in the report. And then the last big section is around benefits and risks, and both the immense benefits of AI are recognized, such as raising human ambition, accelerating scientific research. When we move to the OpenAI's stage 4 out of the 5 stages passed towards AGI, that's about discovering entirely new scientific breakthroughs, and that's definitely ahead of us, I'm sure. And then, of course, it will be also around the potential risks, like we discussed previously, also how Anthropic is considering the models. Have you read this through, Niko? It's a long
No,
report.
not yet. Not yet. Although you said it's quick to go through, it's still 340 pages. This is pretty much as far as I got what we're seeing here now on screen.
Okay.
I will
Yeah.
I will need to definitely take a look.
Yeah. Yeah. But very interesting data points there. If you're doing research around these topics, you may want to use this as a source. Of course, read it yourself, but you can always put that into like Notebook LM, which is a fantastic tool, and have a conversation about the data, turn that even into a podcast if you like. So highly recommended. Yes, so that's for the updates. And now let's move on to greetings from the webinar. So over to you, Niko.
Yep. All right. So yes, today we had a webinar. The topic was very broad in a sense. It was from LLMs to agents. What's the difference? There's a whole lot one could talk about around that, but since we are a process automation company, then we took it from our angle and so on. So, for instance, this sort of analogy was done. Two ends of the LLM solution spectrum. One end is a sort of butter knife, and one is a surgical knife. The other one requires more effort to use, but then more effort to set up, to train how to use it, and so on. But it gives you have more control. You can do exactly what you need to do with it very precisely and repeatably if you know what you're doing. And this is more about the solution development to get to these outcomes. But yeah, so this was discussed, and enterprise-grade agentic systems lean very heavily towards the surgical knife spectrum because these are parts of business processes that need to understand the business, understand the rules, and come up consistently with the type of output that is expected by the business process. Then it's really important that you have your parameterization done in the correct way. You have your system prompts done in the correct way. You have examples of what you want to be done there, and so on. It's connected to systems, data sources. There's a whole lot of things that you have to set up in order to reach that level. Whereas with this more of a butter knife approach, you cook something up and it sort of gets you there. You might be copy pasting the results and the inputs and so on. And it's good for like personal type of use, but it's not a scalable solution either. It's not going to handle 5,000 instances simultaneously by itself. But yes.
A question, Niko.
Yeah.
Can you explain what do you mean by how do you ever pronounce that? But parameter is what comes to like none versus loads. So can you explain what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So parameterization. So some solutions, for instance, you only type in the user prompt and that's it.
Mhm.
That's the only thing you can do when you don't have any control or any other things around that solution. You cannot switch the LLM in there. You cannot change the system prompt. So if your business rules change,
Mhm.
it's good if you have a way to modify the system prompt so that your solution stays relevant throughout that time. For repeatability and so on, you want to be able to affect what the temperature is in the parameters. Usually you want to set it to 0.
And hey, a question on that as well, because we might have some listeners who have not come across the term of temperature in the context of LLMs and generative AI. What do we mean by that?
Yeah. Temperature is a number between 0 and 1, and the higher it is, the more creative you're allowing the large language model within your solution to be. So because we want predictable, repeatable results, we want as little creativity as possible. So even though we use generative AI solutions, we want to keep the creativity of that at a minimum so that we can get consistent output out of it without having to go too much back and forth with the users and so on. Other things that affect other parameters and fine tuning aspects are the context window. What do you put in there? how much can you put in there? What does your model support? Basically, that affects how long your system prompts can be, how much rules can you have there, whether it makes sense to actually have a system of multiple agents or one agent that tries to do everything or can do everything. Then you have the knowledge files with which you can ease in the burden of having everything in the system prompt. So scenario specific rules can be buried in the knowledge files. So those are only accessed if that certain scenario is identified. And this helps with token optimization and all kinds of things. So there's a lot of things that if you're building a enterprise grade solution that's going to be a part of a business process that you need to consider, you need to understand. Most of all, you actually, well, it's just necessary to understand what all those things do, understand what it means from your business process perspective, and make sure that you have all the business rules ready to be laid out for the agent system so that it can do exactly what you want it to do. And this all helps with these kinds of tricks that we mentioned in the webinar and the way we do things. You minimize the hallucinations and all kinds of things that the sort of more butter knife solutions tend to have. Yeah. I'll share one more thing from the presentation. We went through this sort of loan application processing example. Well, it's a simple process. It's something we've done with some customers. And the point here was to sort of show how the flow of this process goes on a high level. It's skipping some bits because I didn't want to go into too much detail. But what we're doing here is we are highlighting with the white boxes the features of agentic systems that are being leveraged here. So what kind of things do the agent solutions facilitate in this? There are some things here that you can also do with RPA depending on the need and so on. But with these agentic systems, all of these become so much more straightforward and quicker to develop and so on that it's made sense to do it like this. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And then there are things
This
where you absolutely would not be able to use RPA for. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a great example. If you can super quickly run this through for the listeners who can't see this on the screen. So kind of the process chart and the different steps on a high level, and then always mention when there's like agentic capability used, because not everybody can see this. So I found this very, very useful. So please.
Yeah. So starting from the top left, we have the part where the customer fills out the loan application, which is then coming over to the company providing the loans, at which point the application details are checked, for instance, for the loan type, the amount of money asked for. And at this point, there's already the first analysis step where the agentic system checks if the loan type and amount would require some additional details from the customer before a decision can be made. And if so, then the scenario for what kind of details are needed and what needs to be asked for is then buried in the knowledge files. So we're using a data source for that one. And after knowledge files are accessed, then the agentic system can contact the customer using a tool to ask for these additional piece of information. Then the information of the details is analyzed, and maybe there might be a bit of back and forth with the customer if not all the details are provided and so on. So you need to ask for them again or ask for more details. And after the information has been analyzed, then a recommendation is made by the agentic system, at which point there's a human in the loop section for the loan provider's expert who's making the decision. Now, this is an example. You could also make it so that you give the solution free rein to give out these loans depending on the thresholds. But in this case, in this example, we are contacting a human for every single application. Then once a decision is made, the CRM is updated again by the agentic system with tool use. And finally, the customer is contacted. Again, agentic system uses a tool for that. So there's a lot of different things. And as mentioned, you can do some of these things with RPA, but sometimes it might not be necessary to start implementing RPA if you can do it with this by itself. Like there's no need to use both if it's not absolutely needed. CRM update might need RPA because it might be a legacy system. There might not be APIs for that. So at that point, the system would need to trigger another automation to handle that part.
That's great. Thank you so much for breaking this down and going it through step by step and illustrating what are the agentic capabilities and steps in between the whole process. So very, very useful indeed. Yes. Anything else you want to share in the end for the web? And guys, go and check the webinar. That's now available on demand on digitalworkforce.com. You go to news and resources and then select webinars, and you can then register for the session. It's a really good one, highly recommended. Going more into depth into what Niko was like highlighting here on a high level.
Yeah, and we had a lot of technical questions from the chat from people who are clearly already onto building these types of solutions. So I think it's very good that, we are able to provide answers to those questions and see that many are on the journey, have started the journey that we've been on for some time now.
Yeah, indeed. Any question you want to bring up to the end here?
Nothing in particular, really, but do check out the webinar. We tackle the questions in that. So if you're interested, then go take a look.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks a lot, Niko. I think that's all for today's episode, and thank you all for listening and watching, and we look forward to speaking with you soon again. Thanks all.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.